Happy Place Home Studios.
The Helix from Line 6 is truly an amazing piece of technology for your studio. I've been using the Helix for many years, and I am continually amazed by what you can do with it, how well it works, and how really visionary this piece of technology is. Welcome back to Happy Place Home Studio, and today we're going to talk about updating and upgrading your Helix with the periodic software releases that Line 6 provides. I'm interrupting our regularly scheduled introduction of this video to impart some important information to you about the production of this video and many of the videos that I produce for the studio. Most of them, whether they're a single video or a series of videos, are triggered by things that happen in my own studio. In this case, the trigger was the need for me to update my Helix system. So some things you can't do twice. I can't update my Helix system and then go back and produce a video about how to update the Helix system. So that means I need to do that in real time as I update it myself. So in this case, ran into some curveballs, ran into some changes in the process, a couple of hurdles, and got through them. But guess what? That's what happens when you update your sophisticated equipment in your studio, especially from a company like Line 6, who does a great job of really making improvements and changes and updates and upgrades to their software and their systems. So, interrupting to let you know that, but also you'll see me a little bit later as I come back and recap some of those things that happen and update the sequence of events versus what I thought they were when we started. Now back to our regularly scheduled introduction. Now, I've probably had my Helix for about 5 years, so I've done at least one major upgrade per year in all that time. And the upgrades and updates accomplish what most updates and upgrades accomplish. They fix bugs, they add features, they tweak, and they really add a lot of value. And with your Helix, and by creating an account at line6.com, you get those updates and upgrades free of charge. Now, the Helix is basically a highly specialized computer with all of the capabilities of a computer, but without some of the conveniences of a computer. For example, it doesn't have wireless capability. So there are some things that are not convenient about upgrading the Helix when you need to do so, like the need to actually connect it to a physical network. So we'll talk through some of those issues. Helix has, Line 6 I should say, has steadily incorporated better and better procedures in their updates. They've made it easier, they've automated it more, and now it's just something that maybe I would say takes half an hour to an hour when an update comes out to do everything that you need to do. So we're going to actually go through that procedure, and I will record all the major components of that update or that upgrade. So one of the things that you need to have besides your Helix, and I'm talking about really a floor model, although in a separate video we will also cover updating Helix Native, which is the plugin that you can use on your PC or your Macintosh. We're just talking about the floor model. And there are multiple floor models of Helix. I have the, deluxe model, which with all the capabilities that the Helix line has, and there are other models that don't have LCD displays, for example. But they update pretty much the same way. So with this procedure, you'll be able to update the various models of floor Helix that Line 6 offers. So what's the basic thing you're going to do here? Well, you'll need an account at line6.com. Absolutely, you need that. And you should have that anyway. You get support through that. You get updates through that. You can use their marketplace and buy presets and all kinds of wonderful stuff through there. And you're going to need, I would at least have an hour available to do the upgrade start to finish, depending on what you have to do to actually put the Helix into position, connect it to your network, and that type of thing. So, with those things in place, you're ready to go, and let's go ahead and get started on updated Helix. One thing I will show you before we move to the next segment here is that as I will cover in this video just a little bit, I keep some things separate for specific devices. For example, the Helix requires a physical plug-in to your network. And as many devices have, it's got an older style USB 2.0 connector on the Helix side. So that is this type of connector right here. And so you're going to want to keep that cable and make sure that you've got it when you want to update your Helix, because they're becoming harder and harder to come by, and you're not going to be able to update it if you don't have that type of connector on the network. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into the procedure for updating your Helix. In my studio, I really count on wireless, and I don't have any physical connections inside the studio itself. So in order to get the Helix hooked up to my network physically, I'm going to go ahead and unhook it, unhook the power, unhook the guitar input and the mixer output, and move the Helix physically into my control room next to my computer, where I can go ahead and physically hook it up to the network. That only takes a couple of seconds, little tiny bit of bother, but it's no big deal. And now I'm ready to proceed. I keep all physical devices necessary for equipment upgrades of any kind in a special place, in this case inside of a camera bag. That way I keep track of them and I don't lose them. Now, in this case, all I really needed was the cable, which has the special USB 2. I grabbed that other little doodad just in case, but turned out I did not need that. Setting up back in the studio is really very straightforward. I only need power and the cable for the network connected, the USB 2 end, of course. I don't need any sound out or guitar in, so pretty easy. That is, unless you don't see too well, like myself, and this is where I get to make a pitch for standardization on really easy to use connectors and adapters. There's far too many adapters right now with different types, and in this case I'm dealing with that USB 2 old style connection, and it's just not super straightforward. So it took me a second, and in fact even longer than I recorded, to figure it out and get it plugged in here, but for most it's no big deal. And once I have that in place, all I need to do is go ahead and start the unit, turn the power on, and we'll be ready to head into HXEdit and the website at line6.com to continue the procedure. All right, I have used my browser to access the Line6 website at line6.com, and I have further logged in, as you can see, and there are many things available to me as an account holder at Line6. If you do not have an account, you really need one with your Helix, so go ahead and take a minute and create your account and log into it so you can catch up to where we're at here. All right, once I have logged in, I will have access to downloads. And they have a fairly nice little tool available to help to walk you through the downloads for the specific product that you're looking for. You start on the left-hand side with the filtering process, and it will take you through and locate the files that you're looking for. So to start the process, you have to pick your product. And I'll be zooming in here, as you know, because I don't see too well. And so I'm going to locate the Helix in the list here. They've got a lot of products. They're arranged in alphabetical order. So when we find the Helix, which it's a little bit, there it is. That's not technically alphabetical, but there's my Helix. I'm going to select that, and that begins the filtering process. I'm going to go to the next drop down, which is for choose your software. Now, there's there's only a couple of things that are really applied to the Helix here. In a perfect world, once I pick Helix, it should only show me things that relate to the Helix. It really doesn't do that. But I'm first after drivers, and I want to see if there are any new drivers for the Helix. Since the last time I did this update process, which might be close to a year ago. It's at least 6-8 months ago, and maybe close to a year. So when I hit drivers, so now I've got Helix and drivers selected. Now I just need to choose my operating system, which is Mac OS X, and that covers all of the Mac OS operating systems under OS 10. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Go. And what that will then do is it will show me any software that has been released that matches my criteria. So that you can see here that there is an update that was released on let's see, driver 2, let's see, 9.6. Okay, yep, that's one I already have, so I don't have an updated driver. Now, interestingly, I saw a driver earlier that was for M1 hardware. Now, maybe it somehow has figured out I don't have M1 hardware, so it's not showing me that driver, but I did see that earlier, so that's interesting that it's not showing it right now. Well, I don't need that driver, so I'm good. I'm going to go ahead and go back a step in the process here, and I'm going to change from drivers to firmware. And there's my firmware right there. And we'll go ahead again. We've got the Mac OS 10 still selected there. I'm going to click on Go, and that will show us any firmware that's available. All right, here is some firmware that's available. Version 3.15.0, release 2/8 of 22. I do not have that. I was in Hawaii in February, and it is currently May. I have not updated to this version. So this is available, and we're going to be installing this. So this will give you a lot of information because these updates are fairly significant. So let's just walk through some of the information that it's going to give you. So the first thing it tells you is how to update to the new version. And to do your updates, you always are going to use the HXEdit application. Now, I'm going to plug my Helix in via USB in a minute. You saw earlier in the video that I moved the Helix into my room with my computer so I can have the USB connection. We're going to plug it in just a second, and that you'll see what that does. But this tells me that I can use HXEdit to do my update. And the update, there's several things that happen there. Well, we're going to walk all the way through it for you. But it walks me through several other things, and including troubleshooting with the update. And let's just go through some of the things it's going to take. Is there anything else I should know? It just gives you a lot of information here. It's going to tell us all the new amps that they've added. And these updates are fairly significant, by the way. They add a lot of really cool content. So they added a new amp here, and that's a Line 6 original amp. A lot of the amps are modeled amps. I've noticed they're getting away from that. It seemed to be a little bit doing more original work. They've got new effects, and I noticed earlier that this update has many, many new effects, different devices, and a lot of cool stuff that you get when you add this in here. So a lot of very detailed information, which is terrific. These are free updates, so a lot of value that Line 6 is providing with the Helix updates. And then it tells us new legacy effects in the new version. So in addition to all the brand new effects, there's new legacy effects as well. And they go through a list of new features that they've added, which they always do a great job of adding really cool new features. They've added really significant capabilities of the system, like the favorites system was added through an update like this. Then there's a list of bug fixes, and these lists are getting shorter. That's good news. But right after that is a list of known issues. In other words, bugs they know they have in this release. So they fix bugs, they release new bugs. And that's the way it goes. Okay, so when you've read through all that and you're ready, you can go ahead and get the download. However, they've actually provided a slicker way to do it than getting the download. And so one of the things that you can do is you can simply plug in your Helix to your system that already has HX Edit installed. And the only thing that you need to make sure of, and you can check this by again going back a step and looking in the software. So we've got firmware down there. Let's go down and find HX Edit. All right, so there's HX Edit. And let's go ahead and click on Go over here again. All right, and here's HX Edit version 3.15 to release 2.7.22. This is what I was referring to earlier. So you can update to HX Edit if you want to before you plug the Helix in. But as long as you have version 3.0.1 or later of HX Edit, it will update itself at the same time that it's updating the Helix. So that's what I'm going to do just to save myself some steps. So to get it to begin updating the Helix, I'm just going to simply hook up the USB cord that I plugged into the Helix on the video. And notice that I use a very specific cord for that because it's got the old style USB 2 connector that goes into the back of the Helix. So you don't want to lose that cord. And I'm going to go ahead and plug that into the back of my Mac here. And what should happen is it will sense that device and it will pop up a prompt here for us. Okay, I'm going to navigate to my applications and I'm going to locate my Line 6 applications in my list here. I don't have enough applications on this system. Here's Line 6 and there's HX Edit. So let's go ahead and pull that up. Now if our connections are working properly, that should basically pull up and tell us that we have HX Edit updates are available for your HX Edit for your Helix Floor. Click OK to view and install these updates. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. All right, so it gives me a Helix Floor update. It says the following updates are available: HX Edit update to 3.15. And I'm going to go ahead and update that now. I want to update HX Edit before I update the Helix. And of course it wants my password. Okay, choose the download location and file name for the installer. This is so you can manually run the installer later if you want to. Okay. So I'm just going to keep the default name, and downloads is fine. I'll go ahead and click Save. There we go. All right. It tells me HX Edit will now exit so the installer can run. Okay. HX Edit, you do your thing. Okay, installer is going to run. And this also gives me a list of new features and capability of HX Edit. I agree and install. And it's going to want my password. And off we go. It's installed. Okay. Do you want to move HX Edit? And I'm going to go ahead and say keep, just in case. I'll get rid of the installer over here. And now I'm going to relaunch HX Edit. Okay, HX Edit updates are available for your Helix Floor. Click OK to view and install these updates. Go ahead and click OK. You'll now notice that the HX Edit update is no longer listed because we already did it. So my Helix Floor firmware February 8th, 2022, version 3.15. I'm going to go ahead and say update now. Step 1, create a backup. Before updating HXEdit will prompt you to create a Helix backup, a .hxb file. In the unlikely event of an update error, may use this file to restore your device. That's important. We'll go ahead and click OK. Okay, file name, Helix Floor Backup 2022, May 4th, yep, okay. Created while producing video, okay. And where, documents, line 6, tones, Helix backups, that's fine. So it's going to be under the line 6 directory under documents. I'm going to go ahead and click create backup. Now, I want to commend Line 6 because they greatly have improved this process. They've really automated it. A lot of these things you used to have to do manually, and it worked, but it was far more tedious. And the backup process does take a little bit here because it's backing up not only all of your files and all of your user content on the Helix, which can be a lot because you might tweak a lot of the presets and that kind of thing. You might have downloaded a lot of presets. You might have download a lot of IRs. You could have a lot of things that you've put on your Helix. And so this is going to back up all of those things for you. So you obviously have to have some room on your Mac or your PC or whatever you're using to go through this process. But I really like the fact that Line 6 has continued to update and upgrade this part of their process to make it easier for their users and more secure, less chance that you're going to skip a step and accidentally lose some content. Okay, this is telling us HXEdit backup is completed successfully. We'll click OK. All right, here's our end user license agreement, and we're going to do what we always do, read that carefully and give it to our attorney, or we're just going to say OK. Update device. HXEdit will now update your device firmware to the latest version. The process will take a few minutes. So when you click OK, we're going to switch over to our Helix view. And watch what happens there. Okay, the update is now complete, and the Helix is going to restart. And we'll come back to our main display here and take a look at the notice that it gives us there. All right, update is complete. Successfully completed the update process, and it's highly recommended that you perform the following after your device reconnects. Factory reset your device by power cycling while holding the foot switches 9 and 10, bottom row, 2 middle foot switches, bottom row 2 middle foot switches, okay, and restore your device from the backup you just created. All right, we're continuing to watch the system reboot after rebuilding itself. Okay, the system has finished reloading all the presets and it has completed rebooting itself. So we're going to follow the on-screen instructions and we're going to restart, do a factory reset, and reload from our backup. This is the first time that I've had to do this, by the way, so we'll see how this goes. Okay, I turn the unit off. I'm holding down switches 9 and 10, which are the two middle switches, to do a factory reset. Turn it back on. So in HX Edit, so I just exited, from the last screen that we were on there. Under the File menu, I have Restore from Backup, and Backup folder and Backup file for backup. Yeah, that's the one I want to use right there. So that's one we're going to restore from. And it's asking me, what do I want to restore? And pretty much it looks like everything that I had used, and I had not used any favorites, is what I can restore here, and did not give me any other guidance in that. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to say Restore Backup. Okay. Are you sure you want to overwrite data in your Helix with the content of this backup? And I'm going to go ahead and have to say yes, since that's what I was directed to do by Line 6. A few curveballs aside, the end of the story is a happy one. Once the modules were reloaded from the backup, I was able to check my Helix, ensure that all of my user content was still present and accounted for, which included my own presets that I had created, included presets I had purchased from Line 6, and included impulse response units that I had purchased from OwnHammer and others. We did have a few curveballs in this upgrade process. I think partially because Line 6 had changed the process, added new things to the process, added new automation to the process. So there were some things that happened there, but we paid attention and we were able to get through it. Let's recap the steps that we took to do this upgrade. First, we started with our prerequisites. We are doing an upgrade here, so we assume you have a fully properly functioning and installed Helix, and that you have downloaded the software from Helix, such as HX Edit, at least once, so that this is an actual upgrade process. We also assume that you have the special USB cable. It came with your Helix with a USB 2.0 connector on one end and a standard USB 2 or 3 connector on the other. Once you have those prerequisites, you're ready to proceed. The first step in our upgrade process was to make sure we had our special USB cable to do the upgrade with, and to relocate our Helix if we needed to add it to the physical network. If you can put it on the physical network right from where it sits, terrific, you don't need to move it. Second, we navigated to the line6.com website, made sure we had created an account, and began to check for software updates. Now, this video does somewhat presume that you have your Helix already installed, so you downloaded the software at some point, and so we're only looking for updates. So the updates that we wanted to look for was the firmware update for the model of Helix that we have. Once we located that, we were able to download and begin installing the software. Next, we began the installation process either by plugging the Helix into our computer, which would auto-launch HX Edit and the upgrade process, or by launching HX Edit itself, which would launch the update of HX Edit and then the firmware update. We carefully read the instructions as the update progressed to make sure we weren't missing anything and make sure there wasn't something that we hadn't done before that we now needed to do as part of the update process. We then created a backup following the instructions in the update process to ensure that no matter what happened, we'd be able to get back to where we started from if we needed to, and to make sure that our user content could be reloaded after the update was completed. We then actually performed the update to the Helix. Now, this obviously involved, at some point, plugging the Helix into our system, but we handled that and the update was completed. We then performed a factory reset of the Helix, which involved simultaneously holding buttons 9 and 10 while we turned the Helix unit on. That put it into a state where we could finally restore the backup that we had created, which we have to do no matter what. Our final step was then to ensure that all of our content had been restored, that everything was working properly with the Helix, and to put it back in place if we ended up moving it to be able to put it on the network. And that completes your Helix upgrade. In this case, the upgrade for me took about an hour and a half, a little longer than normal. But that will vary from upgrade to upgrade. Even though Line 6 has made this update process easier than it was years ago, there's still quite a bit to it, quite a few steps. There's a lot going on. I hope you found this information useful in updating your Helix, and we hope you'll tune back in to Happy Place Home Studio to learn more about your Helix and the many other things that go on in your home studio. See you next time.